Coming up next on At Your Service, today we'll be discussing why perseverance is a critical life skill for students. Stay tuned. Welcome to At Your Service. Today we'll be discussing perseverance. We have two wonderful special experts that can help us discuss what critical life skills your children need to gain in the area of perseverance. So today I'd like to welcome Shira, Levy, and Nicole Better. Thank you for joining us today. Could you, both of you, could you explain your role as a school psychologist in the PPW in Anne Arundel County Public Schools?
So as a PPW, I help the schools with registration process, sometimes difficult ones when children are in the custody of their parents. I assist with attendance and truancy. I also help with the homeless caseload and residency investigations.
Okay, thank you. And school psychologist?
Sure. As a school psychologist, I work in an elementary school and a high school. And within those two settings, I do individual and group counseling, crisis counseling, consultations with teachers and parents. I work on the problem-solving team and also do psychological assessments.
So for both of you, is there a school psychologist in a PPW at every school?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So if parents have concerns about attendance issues or testing or some sort of counseling services, they could contact the school and ask to speak to a representative from Student Services.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
But we both know that there are other members on the student service team. We also have the school nurse and we have the school counselor. So parents can also reach out if they have questions and they'll point them in the right direction.
Right.
Thank you. So today we're here to discuss, I think, a critical life skill, not just for students, but pretty much for everybody. What is perseverance?
Well, I'll start. Perseverance is being steadfast in accomplishing a goal or task. It is never giving up. I think of words like diligence, persistence, determination when I think of perseverance. And it's an important skill, as you said.
Definitely. I would agree with Nicole in that it's our passion to get through hard times, difficult times, to keep going to accomplish our goals.
Okay, so if you have a parent looking at this program today and viewing this program, why is perseverance so important?
Perseverance is just essential. It's essential for adults, it's essential for children of any age. And while using perseverance, that's what we need in life to get through, to maintain our goals, to accomplish our goals, to have achievement. It's what makes us resilient.
Okay, so what would that look like at each developmental level? So if I have a parent, thinking about that, and so if they have a student in elementary school or middle school or high school, what would that look like? What are some examples of that relate to school or to life?
Well, what comes to mind for me, for like the elementary school students, is reading can be a difficult task. Some get it quickly and some take a little longer to get that, or their math facts. And so perseverance is just working hard on it every day, having small tasks to do and getting better every day, and knowing that success doesn't always come instantly. Sometimes it takes some hard work and a lot of patience with yourself not to get frustrated and overwhelmed with the task. And when they transition to middle school, the same thing. You got more teachers, you got more students, you got more of life and more responsibility going on, and a lot of times they get so frustrated just being overwhelmed with all the schoolwork and all the social activities that go along, and how to balance that. And setting goals for yourself is really important, and taking those small steps to achieve them can be tough sometimes. To see the results right away. Sometimes kids just want things to happen right away.
Yeah, and I mean specifically perseverance can be persevering to sit at the dinner table for 30 minutes with your family. It can be sitting down and doing homework for 15 minutes. Perseverance can also be accomplishing a goal to get into a specific college or university.
So it really, even though we work in a school setting, it hits every facet of a person's life.
Right.
And I think that's very interesting, because many times we use that terminology in the schoolhouse, but for parents to maybe reflect upon what are some of those daily tasks
I can give you a good example. My son was learning to ride his bike. fall. And finally, he's soaring, but if we continue to hold on to the back of the bike, they'll never feel that success in knowing I'm going to fall, but a Japanese proverb says fall 7 times, get up 8. And so you do have to keep on getting up and working at it. Even though you fall, you get the bumps and the bruises along the way, and you keep going. So it is a part of everyday life that we have tasks. We have things we want to learn, like learning to play an instrument, a sport. Just personal goals that we have, learning to cook a new meal or new dish, and it doesn't turn out the way you thought it should taste. So it's everyday tasks.
Okay. At the high school level, what are some of the things that you might see in dealing with perseverance? I know that we discussed about getting into college and going to college.
Right. That's definitely something that we talk a lot about in high schools. It's also just about getting all of your work done on time, handing everything in on time, keeping yourself organized, persevering enough to sometimes, if you need to, stay throughout the school day and then stay after school with the teacher, which takes perseverance to do that, and put in extended hours after school or extended hours in sports and extracurricular activities.
So one of the things that I want, both of you have a lot of clinical skills and research skills. What does the research say about the topic of perseverance and people acquiring this skill?
So right now, in terms of perseverance, there's a couple of really big research areas that are going on right now that involve perseverance. One of those is called grit, and grit is passion and perseverance towards long-term goals, and that is developed by researcher Dr. Angela Duckworth. She's out of the University of Pennsylvania, and she studied gritty kids and gritty adults, spelling bee winners, high school graduates, military cadets, the most successful people, and she's found that when you have more grit, which takes perseverance, you actually have higher grades, higher happiness levels, lower substance abuse issues, lower levels of obesity, and more likelihood to graduate high school, and then after that continue your education while saving money too.
So it's almost like coping. How is it related to coping? So how do if I was a parent and I'm watching this show, how can I build that within my child? Or do some students just have that type of level of perseverance or that grit,
right,
that they found in research?
So the research is kind of showing right now that grit could be something that you're born with, that's innate, but it also can be something that we can teach. So there's tons of research now on how we as adults and parents can teach our kids to be grittier. And part of that research is on growth mindset, which is another term that's used. And that's developed by Carol Dweck. And growth mindset is the mindset that our brains are always changing. They're always capable of learning, that there are no limits to what we can achieve if we have passion and perseverance. So some part of that is in the language that we use when we praise our children, of how we build a growth mindset for them to know that even when something's difficult, we can cope with it and we can persevere.
So for parents working with their children at home, what would some of that language look like? So if you have a child that is unable to tie their shoe at this point and is like, I can't tie my shoe, completely frustrated, because it is a difficult process. I mean, it's been so long, so it's, for an adult, we don't really think about going back to that. But what are some things that or phrases that parents could say that maybe it would change the way a child thought, that would have that growth mindset?
So in terms of some of the language that we can use, it's great to use language that focuses on effort and strategies. So in terms of tying a shoe, we might want to say something like, oh, I really like how you're holding both of the laces in your hands, how you're folding one lace over the other lace, and that can be translated to math, to English, to any kind of, to sports, to any subject area. But it's all about praising the effort and the process.
Okay. Instead of just the whole person, like, you're a good child, you're a good boy, good girl,
right?
You're a smart student. So you're asking them to be more specific. And then also, it seems to be the when. Like, it might not be now, but when you are able to do this, and to focus on the future.
Right. That even if we don't know something or master something right now, it just means that we haven't learned it yet. It doesn't mean that we're not capable of learning the task.
One of the things that I receive a lot of information about, or I have a lot of questions about, is praise. Okay, people think praise very differently, and it is always a hot number, I think, in education on how to praise. Or I go to PTA meetings, and parents will say, everybody should be praised. And sometimes I think that one size fits all is really not the way to appropriately praise children. What would you suggest about praise, not only for in the classroom, but in life for students?
Being specific, targeting what they're actually doing. And like you said, not just you're good or you're good at this, but actually what they're doing. And that will help them to see, okay, I can do one task and move on to the next level with doing the next task. So I think that we have to teach our children positive self-talk, and I did it, and I can accomplish this, and I will, instead of the I can'ts, and also model that language for them.
So the big thing is modeling it at home.
Absolutely.
And then using that positive self-talk. And so when something's difficult, to say, you know what, I'm going to try and try again until I get this.
Absolutely.
And so it's really critical, especially for the younger students, because you are forming and shaping the way they think and the way they feel. Anything else about praise? Any kind of caution in dealing with praise for students?
The one word of caution I would say is just to stay away from praising fixed traits like intelligence. If we say, you did a great job on your test today, I knew that you would do well because you're so smart, and then one day that child doesn't feel very smart, they might not think they can do well on a test. But if you praise their effort and the strategies that they use, they can think about that the next time they go into any test.
So, for example, it would be something like, I saw, the effort that you did spending your time studying those multiplication tables has really paid off, So there's going to be times where students will be frustrated, and educationally we know that the work is more and more difficult, that if you keep with that fixed characteristic, that's not something that they can typically change.
Right.
Or they don't think they can change.
Right. So I've noticed signs hanging in the schools that say not yet. Is this part of the perseverance message?
Yes. Perseverance is a huge emphasis in all of the schools across the county right now, and it's coming out of the Office of Equity. We're teaching teachers how to teach growth mindset to their students. So the phrase not yet is kind of what we've been talking about before, that even if they don't know math now, it just means they don't know a specific concept yet. And I keep using math as an example, but you can just rotate that for anything.
With any subject, any life skill, anything that they're trying to accomplish around a goal or a skill that they're growing.
Right.
So at home or within the classroom, using that not yet, but then creating a realistic time frame or goal for the student. Would the student set that goal, or would they work with the teacher and the parent, depending on what that topic is?
Yeah, I think depending on the topic, students often work with a school psychologist to set goals. They work with the PPW to set goals. And as parents, we should be very involved with our children in helping them set short-term and long-term measurable goals.
Well, I really appreciate, listening to the conversation, especially for the elementary little ones, because really forming those great habits now and having them think through processes and not just, giving up is really important, so that they know it's a process. And sometimes I think that they don't want to make a mistake, but allowing them to understand that it is a process. I really appreciate it. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to continue our discussion on perseverance. Stay tuned.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Hernandez, Coordinator of World and Classical Languages. Do you want to learn Spanish? If so, tune in later today to AACPS-TV, because language matters.
Welcome back to At Your Service. We're having a discussion about the critical life skill, perseverance. Thank you. Let's go back to what we were discussing. Not yet is the big mantra for the, perseverance, growth mindset. But As employees for Anne Arundel County Public School, you each have your own expertise and a different role to play in the area of perseverance. As a PPW, what is your role in working with students and families around the topic of perseverance?
Well, the two main issues that we address are probably attendance and students experiencing homelessness. With attendance, when students aren't coming to school, generally there's an underlying issue that's happening, from bullying to something mental health problem. And so the student services teams get together, and I'm a part of that team that gets together to discuss the student and their needs and to set goals for them to transition back into school, because they need to come to school regularly. With students experiencing homelessness, there are a lot of barriers. We help them to get enrolled, from not having all the documentation to going to get documentation from previous schools, to helping with bus transportation, food, school supplies, uniforms, making sure the student has what they need to be successful in school. And we've also done tutoring and mentoring services, connecting them with the school community as well as outside resources for them and the families. So we try to decrease the stressors of homelessness and the barriers that could impact their achievement. So when they're at school, we want them to get involved in extracurricular activities and have flute if they want to, or dance materials, and sometimes there are fees with that are waived. So we try to do those things to help students persevere, just to focus on their studies so they don't have to worry about everything else that they might not have.
So you mentioned the homeless, or we have unaccompanied youth as well, that have tremendous stressors, and perseverances, you know, to persevere, to come every day under such extreme circumstances. But let's say you have a student who is not homeless. What would it look like for parents when they know that maybe the problem is perseverance and it's not something else that it could be?
When the problem is perseverance, well, that's connecting with the school staff, and that's when the attendance issues usually pop up. You know, I just don't feel well, and you hear the excuses that I just don't feel well, I don't like school, and they make a lot of excuses of even just getting out the door to persevere, to get on the bus, or they miss the bus and mom and dad have gone off to work. But that's when the school team has to put their heads together and say, once they're here, we can push them. We can push them in the right direction. We can encourage them. We get people involved in their life and making sure, from teachers to the school counselor to the PPW, what's your goal? Check in with me. Let me know you're here. Let me know if you need anything. But, you know, sometimes I think the difficult part is home, and the parents pushing them out the door, even when they have so many excuses. But not buying them, saying, you know, no, you have to go to school. It's important, and you have to make it through this. And adolescence is tough, in particular for our middle school and high school students. They do have a lot of challenges and a lot of things that they're responsible for, and a lot of social issues that come up in the school. But again, we have to help them to push through and say it's not going to, you know, last forever. It will get better. It will end. And giving them the tools to get through problem solving and peer conflicts and those kinds of things that our school counselors wonderfully do.
Thank you. And as part of our student service team, the school psychologist, when you have students and families that are struggling with the area of perseverance, how could you help them?
So a lot of time, you know, if we're working with, let's say, the PPW at the school and we have an attendance difficulty, we meet as a team, and the school psychologist can help facilitate the team with the family, with the teachers, with the administrators, with the PPW. We could talk about what are the obstacles and barriers, like Nicole was talking about, that might be impacting the student from coming to school, and what is the best outcome in terms of setting a goal for that student if they did come to school. So sometimes we put plans into place for those students. It could be for difficulties ranging from attendance to impulse control to completing work to following teacher directions. To persevere through any of those tasks, we'll come up with a plan that will have a goal at the end of it for the student to achieve.
Okay. So working as a team, and really if you have a parent, you know, at home watching today, or even a child or a student, to reach out to that student service team, because it seems to me that the first thing you have to do is work as a team to discuss the situation and what is happening, but then find the root cause.
Right.
Like, so talk to me about some of the maybe possible root causes. I know some of them might just be they don't want to come to school, but sometimes there's some serious root causes that may be masking, you know, some of the other things that we might not know or see.
The one that most comes to mind for me, being predominantly in a middle school, is anxiety. You know, anxiety about the change, anxiety about classes, anxiety about too much work, anxiety about peer pressure. So a lot of that is stemmed from just stress and anxiety that they haven't gathered the tools yet to deal with the transition to middle school.
Because elementary and middle school are so different, you know, and they go from one teacher or like small group units to having how many teachers at the middle school?
6 or 7.
Yeah, and being on a team.
Right.
So that transition. What else from the high school level or the elementary level or some things? And we talk about a little bit of anxiety, which could be part of why they are not persevering. What are some other things that maybe might be common that parents need to be aware of?
Well, as you get further along in school, school does become harder. So just the academic challenge in and of itself can be very difficult for students to get used to, transitioning from middle school to high school. You know, depending on what kind of classes you take, the more advanced classes you take, you're going to get even more challenging. And then juggling any kind of after-school activities on top of that work can be very intimidating and challenging for students.
And so they don't know how to organize all that together.
Right.
And manage their time management. How much time can I spend on, do I need to spend on my homework or a project? The extracurricular, social activities, how much time do I need to devote so I can be successful?
And so what are some things that parents can do, they can set in order to help their child as they transition? Because you're right, work does get more difficult and the demands are changing and the structure of the schools are changing, you know, going from elementary to middle high school. It looks very different. How can parents help, you know, setting those pieces in place with the younger ones and even maybe the middle and high school if they put it into place? What are some suggestions that you have for parents?
Well, you got to start early. Middle school is too late. It's too late to say, well, you don't have any study habits, or I haven't set a time for you to help manage your time or schedule your time on top of everything else. So we really have to start young with setting the habit of getting up, going to school. We have a schedule, and you have a set study time or just time to sit back and read and relax. Take the video games and the television away and give those even little time increments that you have a certain amount of time to do that after you've handled your responsibility. But if you wait too long for middle school, they're overwhelmed. That's when the anxiety and the stress kicks in because the work is harder. They've been able to get through elementary, but now there are more demands on them and more responsibilities, and juggling those things is really, really difficult, and then transitioning to high school. So I would say setting time limits, giving them small goals and tasks, and making sure you follow through and check in on them and say, have you, you know, being like accountable, helping them be accountable. Have you checked your work? Can I check your homework? Is it packed up? You know, those kinds of things, just reminders for them.
And your thoughts?
Yeah, I think definitely the helping our kids develop self-control in terms of and time management. So, you know, using a timer, using goal setting strategies that are great. When you set a goal, you want to make sure it's specific, that you can measure it, that the student can attain it, that there's a time period that's associated with the goal. So we want them to be as specific as possible. Sometimes I see students who come in and say, oh, my mom is going to give me my iPod back when I do well. But do well is not specific enough. We need to really outline what you're trying to achieve.
So make it very measurable.
Yes.
And but also, I sometimes think that the goals or things that I hear people say aren't realistic.
Right.
Because if you haven't been doing your homework all semester, you're not going to start it and get 100% right away. It's almost like you have to build in those steps to bolster that particular child up so that it becomes consistent. Let's talk about parenting is tough. And you know, as people in education, we have a background and we look at student behavior, we look at, you know, cognition. But for a parent, what are some common mistakes that they might make that really reinforces a student not to become, that will not help that student persevere. It kind of, undoes what they really intended it to do.
So I think one of the mistakes is saying you can't, or I don't have the resources, or even making excuses for our students, that it is too hard, so let me pull you back, or let me pull you out of the sport because it's too hard for you, instead of letting them fight through it and letting them feel some success or accomplishing a goal. Just, I stuck with it is a goal. I stuck with basketball, even though it was hard and I had to run laps and all those kinds of things. So just making them stick to it. If they commit to something, just say, it's tough, it's hard, but you have to stick with it. I'm not going to move you from teacher to teacher or activity to activity because it's too hard for you. And I think that helps to build a resilience. It helps to build determination. And then they want to learn more and say, okay, I can do that. They get the positive self-talk and they get the confidence to say, I accomplished this. And you should point that out to them. You started off rough here, but look how you finished.
Okay. I would definitely say two different things. One is, we were talking about this earlier, you have to be a model. We have to be a model of perseverance for our children. So if our children see us struggling with perseverance, whether it be, at our jobs, or if we're in school ourselves, they need to see us persevere through challenges and through setbacks and through failures, so that we model that for them. If we're not a model for them for perseverance, it's going to be very hard for them to pick it up. And the other thing I would say is, as parents, we want to help our children, and it's hard to see them struggle. So in terms of helping our children, and the one mistake I see sometimes is that we try to pick them up when they're struggling. We may try to do things for them. We may try to get them out of doing things that are uncomfortable for them. But the best thing that we can do as a parent is support them with that effort, praise, while they're struggling through something, so that they know challenge is a part of life. It's a part of adult life. It's a part of life as a child, but it's just something that all of us go through.
So not swooping in, and when their child's crying or upset, but evaluating the situation, because there are times where parents are going to have to step in, but there are times where they can actually work through that frustration and learn how to cope with it. And then that small goal and looking at the process, or how could you do things differently, and just being specific with that praise is very important, instead of just like, I'm going to take over. I'm going to fix this for you. Because we know in life that for our well-being and our health, and to be successful in our careers or whatever they are, we have to learn how to do that. And so those are wonderful. It's a wonderful skill, and I think it's a critical life skill. Definitely. Quickly, in about 30 seconds, are there any resources or places to go for parents if they're interested in finding out more about perseverance?
Definitely. If you Google search or internet search growth mindset or grit, you'll find tons of TED Talks. There are also a lot of free apps if you have smart technology, goal setting apps, timer apps that you can use at home with your children. I would say even for all age ranges, Sesame Street has videos and resources for elementary school age children as well.
So people can go to the library too. You can go to the library and check a book out, or check whatever resources. I appreciate your time today. Thank you. I think it's really important for parents to hear about this, and so they can work with their children at home. And thank you for joining us on At Your Service.
We spend lots of time online. We text, we comment, we share. It's a big part of our lives. But communicating with someone online is just like talking to them in real life. Everyone appreciates politeness, and no one likes it when people make fun, spread gossip, rumors, or lies. The fact is, some people do try to hurt others online. It's called cyberbullying, and it's a lose-lose situation. It makes the person being harassed feel bad, and it makes the bully look bad. It might lead to trouble with school authorities or even the police. If someone's harassing you online, it's important not to respond. That's because bullies are looking for a reaction. Block them if you can. Ignore them if you can't. If it continues, save the evidence and ask an adult for help. And don't be afraid to stand up for yourself or to stand up for someone else being cyberbullied. This behavior usually stops pretty quickly when someone speaks up. And when you're communicating online, remember to treat people the way you'd like to be treated. Know how to handle yourself, because being online is part of your life. So stop and think before you click.